The red dust swirled around my ankles as I stood outside the compound gates, clutching the weathered letter that had changed everything. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of what I now knew. Inside that envelope was proof that my late husband's family had been lying to me for 3 years. 3 years of poverty. 3 years of scrubbing their floors. 3 years of being called the cursed one, who brought death to their precious son. My name is Amara, and I'm 28 years old, though grief has aged me beyond my years. I married Kofi when I was 23, in a ceremony so beautiful that people still talk about it in our village of Asakuma. He was the only son of the Mensa family, the wealthiest traders in our region. They dealt in gold, cocoa, and textiles across 5 countries. Kofi's father, Chief Mensa, owned mines that had been in their family for 4 generations. But wealth, I learned, doesn't always mean generosity. Kofi died in a car accident 2 weeks after our 2nd anniversary. The grief nearly killed me. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't imagine a world without his laughter filling our small house. His mother, Mama Efua, held me at the funeral and whispered, "Don't worry, my daughter. You're still our family." I believed her. What a fool I was. Within a month, they moved me out of the house Kofi and I shared and into a small servant's quarter behind the main compound. Just temporary, they said, until we settle the estate. They took everything, our furniture, our wedding photos, even the cooking pots Kofi had bought me. I was left with a sleeping mat and 2 dresses. Kofi left no will. Chief Mensa announced one evening, surrounded by his brothers and cousins. According to our tradition, everything returns to the family. You understand, don't you, Amara? I nodded because what choice did I have? I was alone. My parents had passed when I was 19. My only brother lived in Lagos, struggling to feed his own children. I had no one. So I became their servant. I, who had been a teacher at the village school, now washed their clothes by hand, cooked their meals, and swept their endless corridors. Mama Efua, who had once called me daughter, now barked orders at me like I was nothing. Kofi's uncle, Togbi, would spit near my feet when I served him water. But I endured. I told myself that Kofi would have wanted me to keep my dignity, to be patient, that somehow things would get better. They didn't. They got worse. Mama Efua's sister, Auntie Morker, moved into the compound 6 months ago. She was a bitter woman who had been divorced 3 times and blamed every woman on earth for her misery. She took particular pleasure in tormenting me. "Look at you," she would sneer, watching me scrub pots. Kofi could have married Governor Amenkwa's daughter. Beautiful girl, educated in London. But no, he chose a village teacher with nothing to offer. And look what happened, he's dead. You're cursed, Amara. Everyone knows it. I learned to let the words wash over me like rain. Words couldn't hurt me anymore. I had cried all my tears. But then, 2 weeks ago, everything changed. Old Nana Ya, the eldest woman in Asakuma, stopped me on the path to the market. She was 93 years old, bent like a question mark, with eyes that saw everything. People said she remembered things from before the Europeans came, though that was impossible. "Amara," she croaked, gripping my wrist with surprising strength. "You know they're lying, don't you?" My heart stuttered. "Who's lying, Nana?" "The Mensa family. About Kofi's will." She pressed something into my palm, a folded piece of paper, yellowed with age. "This is a copy. The lawyer, Mr. Osei, he was my sister's grandson. He gave this to me before they silenced him. Silenced him. My blood ran cold. Paid him off. Sent him to Accra with enough money to forget what he knew." Nana Ya's grip tightened. "Read it, child. Then decide what kind of woman you want to be. The kind who accepts injustice, or the kind who fights back." That night, by the light of a single candle in my servant's quarter, I read the document. And I wept. But this time, my tears were not from sorrow. They were from rage. The will was clear. Kofi had written it 3 months before he died, when he learned I was pregnant. I lost the baby a week after his funeral. The grief and stress had stolen that from me too. But Kofi hadn't known that would happen. He had written this will to protect us, his wife and unborn child. He left me everything. The house we lived in. His share of the family business, 40%, worth millions. And most incredibly, he left me his grandfather's private gold reserve, kept in a vault in Kumasi. The estimated value, according to the lawyer's notes, was $10 million. $10 million. And they had hidden it from me. They had made me their slave, while sitting on my inheritance. The will had been witnessed by 3 people. Mr. Osei, the lawyer, Pastor Mensah from the village church, and one other name that made my hands shake. Kwame Addo, the griot of Asakuma. Griots are the keepers of history in our culture. They memorize genealogies, settle disputes, and bear witness to important events. Their word is sacred. A griot cannot lie. It would destroy their entire purpose, their whole lineage's honor. If Kwame Addo had witnessed Kofi's will, then he knew the truth. He had known for 3 years while I suffered. But griots also cannot speak unless called upon in an official capacity. It's part of their code. They observe, they remember, but they don't interfere unless formally asked to testify. I looked at that signature, and a plan began to form in my mind. The next morning, I went about my duties as usual. I served breakfast, washed dishes, swept floors. But inside, I was different. I was no longer the broken widow they had crushed beneath their feet. I was a woman with a weapon, and I knew exactly how to use it. For 2 weeks, I played my role perfectly. I kept my head down, accepted their insults, and waited. Patience, my mother used to say, is the deadliest weapon a woman can wield. Let your enemies think they've won. Let them grow comfortable in their victory. That's when they make mistakes. The Mensah family was growing very comfortable indeed. Last Tuesday, I overheard Chief Mensah and his brothers in the sitting room, counting money and laughing. They were planning to expand their business into Côte d'Ivoire. This is the best decision I ever made, Chief Mensah said, his voice carrying through the thin walls. If we had split the estate with that girl, we'd never have had the capital for this expansion. Togby laughed, a sound like grinding stones. Brother, you worried too much. She's too stupid to question anything. Look at her, 3 years and not once has she asked about Kofi's assets. She's educated though, another uncle said. Doesn't that concern you? Educated in a village school. Mama Efua's voice dripped with contempt. That's not real education. Real education would have taught her to demand her rights. She's weak. She'll serve us until she dies or runs away. Auntie Morker chimed in. And if she runs away, good riddance. No loss to us. Their laughter echoed through the compound. I stood in the kitchen, my hands in dishwater, and smiled. Not yet, I told myself. Not yet. But the time was coming. Yesterday, Chief Mensah received a letter. I saw it when I served his afternoon tea. The envelope bore an official seal, the Regional Development Authority. His face went pale as he read it. What is it? Mama Efua asked. They're investigating our gold mining claims, he muttered. Someone filed a complaint. They're sending auditors next month. My heart raced, but I kept my face neutral as I poured his tea. Who would do such a thing? Togby demanded. I don't know, but we need to make sure everything is properly documented, especially the transfer of assets after Kofi's death. Chief Mensah looked troubled. Get all the paperwork together. We need to show clear legal ownership of everything. Perfect. My letter, sent anonymously through a friend in the capital, had worked exactly as I hoped. Now they would be forced to produce documents, to make official claims. And that's when I would spring my trap. This morning I made my move. I put on my best dress, a faded blue wrapper and blouse that had once been beautiful. I braided my hair carefully. Then I walked to the center of the village, where the great baobab tree stood, its branches spreading like the fingers of ancient gods. This was where disputes were settled, where the village council met, where justice was supposed to live. Kwame Addo sat in his usual spot, a folding chair beneath the tree, his gray hair twisted into locks that reached his waist. He wore traditional Kent cloth and held his staff of office, a carved piece of ebony handed down through 7 generations of griots. He watched me approach with eyes that missed nothing. Nana Kwame. I greeted him, using the respectful title. I request your counsel. Amara Mensa, he said, his voice deep and musical. You honor me with your presence. Sit, child. I sat on the bench across from him. Several villagers had gathered, sensing something important was about to happen. In our village, everyone knows everyone's business. Within an hour, the entire community would know about this conversation, which was exactly what I wanted. Nana Kwame, I have a question about tradition. I began, pitching my voice so the gathering crowd could hear. When a man dies and leaves a widow, what does our custom say about her rights? The griot's eyes gleamed with something that might have been approval. Our custom is clear. A widow has rights to her husband's property. She cannot be cast out or left destitute. The family must care for her, or she inherits according to the deceased's wishes. And if there is a will, then the will must be honored. It is the final voice of the dead, and we must respect the dead. He paused. Why do you ask, child? This was it. The moment I had been planning for 2 weeks. I reached into my wrapper and pulled out the copy of Kofi's will. My hands were steady now. All fear had burned away, leaving only determination. Because, Nana Kwame, 3 years ago you witnessed a will. You signed your name as witness to my husband Kofi Mensah's last testament. I held up the document. This will left me his house, his business shares, and his grandfather's gold reserve. Everything. But the Mensah family told me no will existed. They made me their servant. They took everything that Kofi wanted me to have. The crowd gasped. I heard murmurs rippling through them, like wind through grass. Kwame Addo's face remained neutral, but I saw his fingers tighten on his staff. You make a serious accusation. I make a truthful statement, Nana. I stood, holding the will high. I'm not asking you to take sides. I'm asking you, as a griot of Asakuma, as a witness to this document, to tell this village, to tell everyone gathered here, is this will authentic? Did Kofi Mensah create it? Did you witness his signature? The silence that fell was absolute. Even the birds seemed to stop singing. A griot cannot lie. Everyone knew this. If Kwame Addo confirmed the will's authenticity, the Mensah family's lies would be exposed in the most public way possible. The shame would be enormous. In our culture, honor and reputation are everything. To be revealed as thieves who stole from a widow, who enslaved their own daughter-in-law while sitting on her inheritance, it would destroy them. But there was a problem, and I saw it in Kwame Addo's eyes. Child, he said carefully, this is a matter for the courts, not for the village square. No, Nana. I shook my head. The courts are in Kumasi, 3 hours away. The Mensah family has money for lawyers. I have nothing. They will drag this through the system for years while I continue to live as their slave. But you are here. You are respected. Your word is law in this village. I looked around at the crowd, saw familiar faces. I'm not asking for money. I'm asking for the truth. Did you witness this will or not? Amara. The shout came from behind me. I turned to see Togbi pushing through the crowd, his face twisted with anger. Behind him came Mama Efua, Chief Mensah, and Auntie Morker. They must have been told about this gathering. What is this nonsense? Chief Mensah demanded. Amara, return to the compound immediately. I didn't move. I'm asking Nana Kwame a question. He will answer. There is no will. Mama Efua shrieked. Kofi died without a will. She's making this up. The crowd murmured, uncertain now. The Mensah family was powerful. People feared them. But I had one more card to play. I turned back to Kwame Addo and smiled. The same smile I'd been practicing in the mirror for 2 weeks. Calm. Confident. Unafraid. Nana Kwame, I said softly, I have one simple question for you. The griot leaned forward, waiting. When you witnessed Kofi's will 3 years ago, when you signed your name to that document, when you performed your sacred duty as griot and keeper of truth, did you also make a copy for your own records, as is traditional for important documents? And if so, where is that copy now? The world seemed to hold its breath, because everyone knew the answer. Griots keep copies of everything they witness. It's part of their role as historians. They maintain records that go back centuries. If Kwame Addo had witnessed the will, he would have a copy. And that copy would be identical to mine. The Mensah family's faces drained of color. Kwame Addo stood slowly, his joints creaking. He was smiling now, a fierce, proud smile. "Young Amara," he said, his voice carrying across the square. "You have asked the right question. Come with me." Kwame Addo's house sat at the edge of the village, a modest compound built in the old style with mud walls and a thatched roof. But inside, it was a treasure trove. Every wall was lined with shelves, and every shelf groaned under the weight of books, scrolls, and documents wrapped in oiled cloth. This was the memory of Asakuma, the memory of our people. The crowd followed us, at least 50 people now, including the Mensah family who couldn't afford to stay away. To not come would be to admit guilt. Chief Mensah's face was the color of ash. Mama Efua kept shooting me venomous looks, but I ignored her. Auntie Morker grabbed my arm as we walked. "You ungrateful witch," she hissed. "After everything we've done for you." "You mean after you stole everything from me?" I pulled my arm free. "After you made me your slave? After you spit on my husband's memory by lying about his last wishes? We gave you food, shelter. You gave me scraps from my own table." I looked her in the eye. "Did you really think I'd never find out?" She opened her mouth, but no words came. What could she say? The truth was about to consume them all. Inside Kwame Addo's house, the griot moved to a particular shelf. His fingers traced the spines of carefully labeled documents. 2019, he muttered. October. Here. He pulled out a leather folder, the kind used for important papers. The crowd pressed closer, craning to see. Chief Mensah tried to push forward, but the villagers blocked him. I saw fear in his eyes now. Real fear. Kwame Addo opened the folder with reverent care. Inside was a document, perfectly preserved. He held it up to the light streaming through the window. On October 15th, 2019, he began, his voice taking on the formal tone griots use when reciting history. Kofi Mensah, son of Chief Osei Mensah and Efua Mensah, came to me with a request. He was 25 years old, healthy and happy. His wife was pregnant with their first child. But he had a feeling, what some call a premonition, that he should put his affairs in order. Lies. Togby shouted. The old man is senile. Silence. The command came from Elder Koranteng, the village chief, who had just arrived. He was 80 years old and commanded absolute respect. Let the griot speak. Kwame Addo continued, as if there had been no interruption. Kofi told me he was worried about his family's greed. Those were his words, my family's greed. He said he loved his wife Amara more than life itself. He wanted to make sure she would be taken care of if anything happened to him. Tears streamed down my face. To hear Kofi's words, his love, preserved in the griot's memory, it was like having him back for just a moment. So we drafted a will. Mr. Osei, the lawyer, helped with the legal language. Pastor Mensah witnessed it as a man of God. And I witnessed it as griot, as keeper of truth. Kwame Addo's eyes swept the crowd. The will was very specific. Kofi left everything to his wife Amara. The house on Mango Street. His 40% share in Mensah Trading Company. And most importantly, the gold reserve that his grandfather had left to him, not to the family but to him personally. This gold was stored in vault number 247 at the Kumasi National Bank. How much gold? Someone in the crowd asked. According to the appraisal done in 2018, approximately $10 million worth. The crowd exploded in shocked murmurs. $10 million. In our village, where most people lived on a few dollars a day, it was an unimaginable sum. Chief Mensah found his voice. This is a forgery. My son would never. Your son, Kwame Addo interrupted, his voice sharp as a blade, was a better man than you. He knew what you were. He knew that if he died, you would try to take everything from his widow. So he protected her the only way he could, with the law and with witnesses you couldn't bribe or intimidate. You can be bribed. Mama Efua shrieked. Everyone has a price. The griot's face went cold. I am Kwame Addo, son of Ya Addo, grandson of Kweku Addo, 7th generation griot of the Asakuma line. My ancestors kept the truth when kings tried to rewrite history. They preserved records when conquerors tried to burn them. You dare suggest I would betray that legacy for your dirty money? The silence was deafening. No one insulted a griot's honor. It was like spitting on the graves of their ancestors. Elder Quarantang stepped forward. Let me see both documents. I handed him my copy. Kwame Addo handed him his. The elder examined them carefully, holding them side by side. After a long moment he nodded. They are identical. Every word, every signature. He looked at Chief Mensa. This is your son's signature, is it not? Chief Mensa's mouth opened and closed like a fish drowning in air. And these are your initials. Elder Quarantang continued, pointing to a spot on the will. Here, where it says shown to father. Kofi showed you this will before he died, didn't he? The trap closed. I hadn't known about those initials. But Kofi, clever Kofi, had made his father initial the will to acknowledge he'd seen it. Now Chief Mensa couldn't claim ignorance. I don't remember. Chief Mensa stammered. Don't remember? I stepped forward, my voice ringing clear. You don't remember seeing a will that left $10 million to your daughter-in-law? You don't remember a document that your son showed you 2 weeks before he died? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Or, do you remember perfectly well, and you decided to hide it? To bribe the lawyer? To tell me lies while you stole everything Kofi wanted me to have? We took care of you. Mama Efua cried. We gave you a place to live. You gave me a servant's quarter and made me your slave. You had food, didn't you? Clothes? I pulled at my faded dress. These were my clothes from before Kofi died. You gave me nothing. I worked for every scrap you threw at me. I worked for what was already mine. My voice broke. And worst of all, you made me believe I was nothing. You made me believe I deserved to be treated like trash. You looked me in the eye every day for 3 years and lied to me about my own husband's last wishes. Mama Efua's face crumpled. For just a moment, I saw something that might have been shame. But then her expression hardened again. The gold is gone, she said flatly. We sold it. The money is spent. Even if this will is real, there's nothing left to give you. The crowd gasped. But I smiled. Because I had been planning for this too. Is it? I asked softly. Is it really gone? The fear that flashed across Chief Mensa's face told me everything I needed to know. The gold wasn't gone. They'd lied about that too, probably hoping to discourage me from pursuing my claim. But I had done my homework. Elder Quarantang, I said, keeping my voice steady despite my racing heart. I request a formal village council hearing. According to our customs, when there is a dispute about inheritance, the council has the authority to investigate and render judgment. The elder stroked his white beard, considering. This is a serious matter, Amara. Are you certain you want to pursue this path? The Mensa family is powerful. They have connections in the city, lawyers. I have the truth, I interrupted. And I have witnesses who cannot be bought. Isn't that enough? He smiled, a slow spread of approval across his weathered face. Yes, child, that is enough. He turned to the crowd. The council will convene tomorrow at noon, here under the baobab tree. All parties must attend. All evidence must be presented. Chief Mensa tried one last time. Elder, this is a private family matter. Private. Elder Quarantang's voice cracked like a whip. You made it public when you made this woman your servant in full view of the village. You made it public when you spent wealth that wasn't yours while she scrubbed your floors. You made it public when you dishonored your son's memory and his widow. He stepped closer to Chief Mensa, and despite being a head shorter, he seemed to tower over him. Tomorrow, noon. Be here. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay on my thin mat in the servants' quarter, staring at the ceiling, trying to process everything that had happened. Tomorrow would determine my entire future. Would the council rule in my favor? Would I finally get justice for Kofi for myself? Around midnight, I heard a soft knock on my door. I tensed. Was it the Mensa family coming to threaten me? To hurt me? Amara? The voice was female, wavering. It's Mama Efua. Please, I need to talk to you. I almost didn't open the door, but curiosity won out. I pulled it open a crack and found Kofi's mother standing there in her nightgown, looking older than I'd ever seen her. Her eyes were red from crying. What do you want? I asked, not bothering to hide my bitterness. To apologize. The words seemed to cost her everything. Can I come in? Against my better judgment, I let her in. She sat on the edge of my mat, her hands twisted in her lap. I loved my son, she began, her voice breaking. When he died, something in me died too. And I blamed you. I know it wasn't rational. I know the accident wasn't your fault. But I needed someone to blame, and you were there. So, you decided to torture me? To steal from me? It wasn't supposed to be like this. Tears flowed freely now. At first, we really did plan to take care of you. But then my husband's brothers got involved. They saw the gold, the business shares, and they convinced him that you didn't deserve any of it. That you were just a village girl who got lucky marrying Kofi. That the wealth should stay in the family. I was family, I whispered. I know that now. She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. Amara, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know, the gold is still there. All of it. My husband moved it to a private vault in Accra, but it's intact. The business shares too. Nothing has been sold. My heart raced. Why are you telling me this? Because you're right. Because Kofi would be ashamed of me. Because I've spent 3 years becoming someone I don't recognize. She stood, wiping her eyes. Tomorrow, at the council, I'm going to testify in your favor. I'm going to tell them everything. Your husband will never forgive you. She smiled sadly. I know, but maybe I can start forgiving myself. She paused at the door. Kofi chose well when he married you. You're stronger than I ever was. I'm sorry I couldn't see that before. After she left, I sat in the darkness, trying to process what had just happened. Could I trust her? Was this another trick? But something in her voice, in her broken posture, told me she was sincere. Grief does strange things to people. It had broken her, turned her into someone cruel. But maybe, finally, she was finding her way back. The next day dawned bright and hot. By 11:30, the entire village had gathered under the baobab tree. People had come from neighboring villages too. Word had spread fast about the widow standing up to the Mensa family. Some brought food and drinks to sell. It was like a festival, except the entertainment was my life hanging in the balance. The council consisted of Elder Korantang and 4 other respected elders, 2 men and 2 women. They sat in carved wooden chairs, symbols of their authority. Kwame Addo sat to the side as official witness and recorder. The Mensa family arrived with 2 lawyers from Kumasi, both in expensive suits that seemed absurd in our village setting. Chief Mensa looked like he hadn't slept. Togby and the other uncles glared at me with pure hatred. Auntie Morker was notably absent. But Mama Efua was there, standing apart from her husband, her face set with determination. Elder Korantang called the session to order. We are here to settle the matter of Kofi Mensa's estate and his widow Amara's rights. Let the truth be spoken, and let justice be done. The lawyers tried to argue that the council had no jurisdiction, that this was a matter for the courts. But Elder Korantang shut them down. This is Asakuma, he said firmly. We have settled disputes this way, for 500 years. If you don't like it, you can leave. But the Mensa family will face judgment here, one way or another. Better to face it with a chance to defend yourself. Chief Mensa nodded curtly to his lawyers. They sat down, defeated. First, Kwame Addo testified, reading the will into the record. Then Pastor Mensa, who had been tracked down that morning, confirmed that he had witnessed the document. Mr. Osei, the lawyer, had been summoned as well. He arrived looking terrified, but under the council's questioning, he admitted everything. Chief Mensa paid me 50,000 cedis to keep quiet, he confessed, his voice shaking. He said the will was invalid because Amara wasn't a blood relative. He said it was family business and I should stay out of it. I was young, just starting my practice. I needed the money. He looked at me, shame written across his face. I'm sorry. I was a coward. Then came Mama Efua's testimony. She approached the council with her head high, and in a clear voice, she confirmed everything. The gold's existence, its location, the conspiracy to hide the will from me. I participated in a great evil, she said. I allowed grief to turn me into someone my son would despise. I cast out the woman he loved, the woman carrying his child. The crowd gasped. Most people had known about my pregnancy. And when she lost that baby from the stress and grief we caused her, I felt nothing. No remorse. No shame. Mama Efua's voice broke. But I feel it now. I wronged this woman in every possible way. She deserves everything my son wanted her to have and more. Chief Mensa jumped to his feet. Efua, what are you doing? These people will take everything. Everything. She whirled on him, her eyes blazing. You mean everything we stole? Everything we took from our own daughter-in-law, while pretending to be good people. She laughed bitterly. Let them take it. It was never ours. The council deliberated for less than 10 minutes. When they returned, Elder Koranteng's face was grave. This council finds that Kofi Mensa's will is valid and binding. All assets named in that will, the house, the business shares, and the gold reserve, are hereby returned to their rightful owner, Amara Mensa. The crowd erupted in cheers. I stood there, shaking, unable to believe it was real. Furthermore, Elder Koranteng continued, his voice cutting through the noise. We find that the Mensa family acted with deliberate malice and dishonesty. They will pay Amara compensation for 3 years of labor at the rate of a senior household manager, he consulted his notes, which comes to an additional 120,000 sadies. Chief Mensa's face turned purple. This is outrageous. We'll appeal to the regional court. Appeal all you want, Elder Koranteng said calmly. But know this. Every person here has witnessed this judgment. Every village within 50 kilometers will know what you did. You stole from a widow. You enslaved your own son's wife. You dishonored his memory. He leaned forward. You can fight this in court if you wish. But you've already lost the only thing that really matters in this life. Your reputation, your honor, your good name. Those, we cannot return to you. The silence that followed was absolute. I looked at Chief Mensa, at his uncles, at the family that had tormented me for 3 years. And I felt nothing. No triumph, no joy. Just emptiness where all that pain and anger used to be. Justice, I realized, doesn't always feel the way you think it will. 3 months have passed since that day under the baobab tree. 3 months since my life changed forever. The gold was transferred to my name. $10 million in precious metal, gleaming proof that Kofi had loved me, had thought of me, had tried to protect me even knowing he might not be there to do it himself. I wept when I saw it, locked in that vault in Accra. Wept for everything we'd lost, for the future we'd never have. The house on Mango Street was mine again. I walked through it for the first time in 3 years, touching the walls Kofi had painted, the windows he'd installed himself. The Mensa family had sold all our furniture, but that was fine. I bought new furniture. Better furniture. Every piece chosen by me, for me. The business shares were more complicated. Chief Mensa tried to argue that transferring them would bankrupt the company. But the accountants I hired, with my own money now, imagine that, found something interesting. The company was worth far more than the Mensa family had claimed. My 40% was worth almost $3 million on its own. I sold the shares back to the family at full market value. I didn't want to be tied to them anymore, not in business, not in any way. Chief Mensa had to take out loans to buy me out. The family business that had been wealthy for 4 generations was now deeply in debt. Some people said I should have kept the shares, made them suffer by being their business partner. But I didn't want revenge. I just wanted to be free. Mama Efua left Chief Mensa 2 weeks after the council's judgment. She moved to a small house in the next village and started a support group for widows, teaching them their legal rights. We're not friends. I don't know if we ever will be. but we're civil. Sometimes she sends me messages asking how I'm doing. I reply politely. It's enough. The house I bought my brother in Lagos, he cried when I told him. 3 bedrooms, a real kitchen, running water. His children have their own rooms now. They're going to good schools. When he tried to thank me, I stopped him. Kofi would have wanted this, I said. Family takes care of family. Real family. I donated $500,000 to the village school where I used to teach. They've built new classrooms, bought computers, hired 3 more teachers. The children have books now, real books, not the torn photocopies we used to share among 20 students. When I visited the school last week, the principal asked me to speak to the students. I stood in front of 60 eager faces and told them the truth. Education saved my life, I said. Not because it made me rich, I was poor for many years, but because it taught me to think, to question, to know my worth. Never let anyone convince you that you're less than you are. Never let anyone steal your dignity. A little girl in the front row raised her hand. Teacher Amara, were you scared when you stood up to the rich family? I smiled, terrified. But I learned something important. Courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is being afraid and doing what's right anyway. Auntie Morker left the village entirely. I heard she moved to Accra, told everyone there that her family had disowned her unfairly. Some people believe her, I suppose. But those who know the truth, well, lies have a way of catching up to you. Togby and the uncles still live in the Mensa compound, but they're not what they used to be. The business struggles under its debt. They had to sell 2 of their cars, let go of most of their servants. Sometimes I see them in the market, and they look away, ashamed. I don't gloat. What would be the point? Chief Mensa himself became a shadow of the man he was. The shame broke him. He walks through the village with his head down, and people whisper as he passes. In our culture, a man's honor is everything. He lost his, and no amount of money can buy it back. Kwame Addo and I have tea once a week now. He tells me stories about my husband as a boy, stories I never got to hear. Kofi was mischievous, apparently, always getting into trouble, but talking his way out with that charming smile. The griot makes my lost husband come alive again, just for those brief hours. You honored his memory, Kwame Addo told me last week, by fighting for what was right, by refusing to accept injustice. That takes a special kind of strength. I almost gave up, I admitted. So many times, I thought about just running away, starting over somewhere new. But you didn't. No. Because Kofi deserved better than that. And so did I. The griot nodded slowly, his ancient eyes twinkling. Your story will be told for generations, Amara. The widow who outwitted the powerful family. The woman who asked one question that changed everything. It was a good question, I said, smiling. It was the perfect question. Today marks exactly 3 months since the council's judgment. I'm sitting on the veranda of my house, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. I've planted a garden in the front yard. Marigolds, because they were Kofi's favorite. Tomatoes, because I always wanted a vegetable patch. Hibiscus, because they're beautiful and they ask for nothing but water and sun. I'm wearing a new dress, bright blue with golden embroidery. My hair is braided with colorful beads that click when I move my head. I look like myself again. I feel like myself again. There's a knock at my gate. I stand, curious, and walk over to open it. It's Nana Ya, the old woman who gave me the copy of the will that started everything. She's leaning on her walking stick, her wrinkled face split in a toothless grin. Nana. I help her inside, guide her to the most comfortable chair on the veranda. What brings you here? Can't an old woman visit without a reason? She settles into the chair with a satisfied sigh. Though I did bring you something. She pulls a small cloth bundle from her bag and hands it to me. Inside is a beautiful beaded bracelet, the kind that takes weeks to make. For you, she says. For being brave. For being smart. For being everything this village needed you to be. I slip it onto my wrist, touched. Thank you, Nana. For everything. If you hadn't given me that copy of the will, you would have found another way, she interrupts. You're a survivor, Amara. I saw that in you from the beginning. Even when you were broken, even when you thought you had nothing left, you had yourself. That's always enough. We sit in comfortable silence for a while, watching the sun sink lower. Then Nana Yas speaks again, her voice thoughtful. You know what the young people are saying about you? I'm afraid to ask. She chuckles. They call you the woman who asks the question. They say when they're facing something difficult, they ask themselves, what question would Amara ask? How would she find the truth? My eyes sting with tears. I was just trying to survive.
No, child.
You were trying to live. There's a difference. She pats my hand. Surviving is what you did in that servant's quarter. Living is what you're doing now. After Nana Ya leaves, I sit alone with my thoughts. The grief is still there. It will always be there. I miss Kofi every single day. I miss his laugh, his terrible jokes, the way he used to burn breakfast and pretend it was a new recipe. I miss the life we should have had, the child we lost, all the dreams that died with him. But I'm not drowning in that grief anymore. I'm swimming through it, and sometimes, on days like today, I can see the shore. Tomorrow, I'm meeting with a group of women from 3 villages. They're all widows, all struggling with their in-laws, all trying to navigate the complex web of tradition and inheritance rights. I'm going to help them, share what I learned, make sure no other woman has to fight this battle alone. I've also been thinking about the village school. Education gave me the tools to fight back, but many women in our region never get that chance. What if I started a scholarship fund? What if I made sure every girl in Asakuma could finish school, could go to university if she wanted to? Kofi would like that. He always said education was the greatest gift you could give someone. As the last light fades from the sky, I whisper to the evening air, I did it, my love. I got justice for us. I made them answer for what they did. The wind rustles through my garden, and I imagine it's his voice, telling me he's proud. I stand and go inside my house. There's paperwork to review. The scholarship fund won't set itself up. There are calls to make, plans to finalize. But first, I'm going to make myself dinner in my own kitchen, eat it at my own table, and sleep in my own bed. Such simple things. Such precious things. I survived 3 years of hell. I fought a powerful family and won. I stood in front of the entire village and demanded justice, even though I was terrified. But the greatest victory isn't the money, or the house, or even the vindication. The greatest victory is this. I know who I am. I know what I'm worth. And no one will ever make me forget that again. As I prepare my meal, I think about the little girl at the school who asked if I was scared.
I was.
I'm still scared sometimes. Scared of what comes next. Scared of being alone. Scared of making mistakes with all this wealth and responsibility. But I'm also brave. I'm also strong. I'm also a woman who looked at the impossible and asked one perfect question that changed everything. Tomorrow will bring new challenges. There will be people who resent my success, who whisper that I don't deserve what I have. There will be moments of doubt, of loneliness, of wondering if I did the right thing. But tonight, I'm at peace.
Tonight, I'm home.
And that, after everything, is more than enough. Epilogue. 6 months later, Elder Koranteng stopped me in the market. Amara, he said, I've been thinking about your case. About how you handled it. Oh. I shifted my basket to my other hip, filled with fresh vegetables from my garden. You could have destroyed them completely. You had the power, the money, the public support. You could have driven the Mensa family into the ground. He studied my face. Why didn't you? I thought about his question carefully. Because destruction wasn't the point, Elder. Justice was the point. Getting what was rightfully mine was the point. Living the life Kofi wanted for me was the point. And revenge. Revenge would have made me like them. It would have meant letting their cruelty change who I am. I smiled. The best revenge isn't destruction. It's becoming so completely, unapologetically yourself that their opinions no longer matter. He nodded slowly, a smile spreading across his face. Kofi chose well. I wish he could see you now. I think he can, I said softly. I hope he can. As I walked away, I passed by the old Mensa compound. Through the gates, I could see Chief Mensa sitting alone on a bench, looking old and tired. Our eyes met for just a moment. I saw regret there, and shame, and something that might have been a plea for forgiveness. I nodded once, not forgiveness, but acknowledgement. Then I kept walking. Some wounds don't heal. Some relationships can't be repaired. And that's okay. You don't have to forgive everyone who wronged you. You don't have to make peace with people who would hurt you again given the chance. You just have to make peace with yourself. And I have. I am Amara Mensa, widow of Kofi Mensa, keeper of his legacy, builder of my own future. I am a teacher, a philanthropist, a friend, a sister, an advocate for women who have no voice. I am the woman who smiled and asked one question that changed everything. And I am free.